Today, what I wanted to talk about is how to collect unpaid rent after a tenant moves out. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Michael Slane, and I am the discount property investor, along with my partner, David Dodge. We have been real estate investing for a little over 10 years, together as partners around 7. We started out wholesaling, did pretty well at that, put together a course on it, 100% free at freewholesalecourse.com, so you can check that out. And we also have done a little bit of the BRRRR method to acquire rental properties. So we were able to acquire around 100 properties with little to none of our own cash. And we show you guys how we did that at freelandlordcourse.com. So a couple great free courses we have for you guys. You can find all of our content at discountpropertyinvestor.com. So check that out, discountpropertyinvestor.com. Today, what I wanted to talk about is how to collect unpaid rent after a tenant moves out. So we find ourselves in this situation along with many other landlords. Even though we do our darndest screening our tenants, good tenants eventually can go bad. Life happens, and eventually, maybe they can't afford the rent and they get behind, and you get to that point where you have to evict them, or they move out and they owe you money. So what do? There's not a lot you can do just by yourself without actually getting the courts involved, aside from just asking them for the rent, which clearly wasn't working before because, again, you've got a tenant that's moved out. But again, ask them. I mean, you never know. If you say, hey, could you start making monthly payments of $50 a month, until you get this caught up, maybe they'll say yes. Chances are it's probably not going to happen. So what is the most common thing is you're going to have to file a civil suit against them in court, and you're going to have to get a judgment. So typically we're filing judgments for rent and possession of our property. So we're doing this during the eviction, because typically when tenants get behind, they don't have money and they claim they don't have money and they want to stay in a place free as long as they can. For, again, whatever reasons. Maybe they truly don't have the money, or, again, they're just trying to live in a place as long as they can without paying rent. So we'll typically file a civil suit. Now, all of our properties are owned in entities, not in our personal names. That means that we have to have legal representation, at least here in Missouri. We can't represent ourselves. So we have an attorney file the suit for us. And when the suit comes out in our favor, we get a judgment. And the judgment says that you've got the right to evict them, and then you can have the sheriff come and help you evict the tenant. It also says they owe you this much money, and here's a judgment for that much money, which is great. So then you can hand that to the tenant, and they can say, well, I still can't pay you. So unfortunately, those judgments don't do anything either. If you have a good attorney, and we have some decent attorneys that work with us, but we haven't found that sweet spot where an attorney is good at the legal side and getting the judgments and getting it done cheaply and quickly, and good at collecting those debts. So we have found that we get one attorney we use for the eviction and getting the judgments for us, and then we'll find a debt collector or another company that will help us collect on that judgment. So that is how we do it. And again, I found it to be pretty helpful with our limited rental history. And I say limited, we've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years as a company. I think I bought my first rental about 10 years ago. I haven't had a ton of properties that have had to go this far through the collections process. Have had a few, and in my experience, it takes a long time for that money to trickle in. When a collection company eventually does get a garnishment against the person's wages, if it's a low-income job, oftentimes you'll find that they stop working there. Because again, if they weren't making a ton of money and then a little bit is garnished away, they just decide they don't want to work there anymore. So then you lose even that little money. But that judgment and that garnishment should follow them around. That collection agency is going to follow them around. And eventually the idea is hopefully you'll recover your money. So the long story short is you are probably not going to see that money right away. As a landlord, it's frustrating, but it's also kind of part of the game when you are buying properties. One of our sayings is you make your money when you buy, but you get paid when you sell. So as a landlord, you're selling really, really slowly, essentially. That's the way I look at it. I'm selling really, really slowly. So a tenant is helping me buy that house. They're making payments on it. And if I can collect a little bit of extra money every month from one of those garnishments or collections that I have outstanding, it's kind of just icing on the cake. Unfortunately, you didn't get rent when they were there, and it's just a tough thing. A pill you got to swallow. But then if you are able to get all of that done, you can see some of that money. Now, what about costs? Now, obviously, if you have to go through the court system, you're going to have to pay your attorney. Often you'll be able to put that in with your amount you're requesting that the tenant pays when you win. So then you send that over to the collection company. However, the collection company wants something, and often, I mean, they're pretty high. I've seen as much as 50% is what their share will be. So again, that money comes in slowly. It's not all of it. But again, it is worth doing because quite frankly, these people do owe you the money, and it's not that much extra work. And if you're in this for the long term, that money will come into you eventually. So that's how you do it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any other questions or comments, please leave them below. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe.